Fun fact, the average cost of childcare for 2 kids is now more expensive than the average cost of rent in all 50 states and the average cost of a mortgage in 45 states. So yes, the cost of childcare is often more expensive than a person's mortgage. And that's because the average cost of childcare for an infant is like just under $17,000 a year, which is an insane amount of money. And depending on where you live, it's gonna be much more expensive than that or slightly less expensive than that. And here's the thing, people are talking about the declining birth rate over and over again and how people can't afford houses, but people actually can't afford to have children. People cannot afford to have children. They may be able to have one, but 2 is pushing it because the cost of childcare is truly wild. And here's the thing, the childcare system, it is broken. There's a childcare crisis. This is not just an issue with families not being able to afford it. The childcare workers also aren't paid well. Like the whole entire system is broken, similar to the housing market. And so yes, childcare is more than most people's mortgages. That's just the facts. That is how much money people are spending these days in order to have children. And so before you ask somebody, hey, why don't you have kids? Or are you going to have another one? You might want to ask them how much they pay for childcare. The going rate for a babysitter in my area is $25 an hour. This is it for me. I have looked, I'm in Massachusetts, high cost of living area. Childcare is very expensive here. On average, at a daycare, it's like $2,500 for an infant to attend a month. So you take that, you put it into daycare form, this is what you're getting. It's $25 an hour. That's for a babysitter. That's not for a nanny. That is for a babysitter. If you have multiple kids, this rate goes up. Okay, this rate can go up. And so typically when parents are trying to find a date night or go out with friends, whatever it might be, just space. Even today, my husband and I paid so we could go run Christmas errands without our kids. You're going to be paying $25 an hour. So your time gets very expensive. It gets expensive to go to dinner with friends. It gets expensive to have brunch. It gets expensive to run errands. And that can be really hard to navigate. And this is not even including the fact that oftentimes childcare is inaccessible. If you can't find it, the babysitters are not just always readily available. They move on, they get different jobs, they find different families. You're competing with other calendars. So if you don't have a built-in network of, say, grandparents or aunts and uncles who step into help care for your kids, or even friends, then it's very difficult sometimes just to do simple things like get lunch with a friend or, run an errand. Sometimes even go to a doctor's appointment, right? Some of those things are very, very difficult. And even if you lock in a good babysitter, it can be difficult because they could get sick. They could flake out at the last minute. You do not have control, and that is very, very difficult. So not only is childcare expensive, but it's difficult to locate and secure and know that it's going to work for you.
With the daycare costs being so astronomical these days, I feel like a lot of 2-parent households are going to go down to just 1 parent working. And I know that sounds backwards, but if you really run the math, if daycare is costing the average family $2,000 to $3,000 a month, let's use a husband and wife as an example. If a husband made $90,000 a year, his take-home pay after taxes is probably around $75,000. If the wife goes, I'm going to go get a job for $50,000 so we can get to $140,000, that's going to help our family. But after taxes, it's only $38,000 more. And if your daycare cost is $2,500 a month, that's $30,000 for the year. So you're working 40 hours a week and commuting for only $8,000 extra for the whole year, $650 a month. I feel like the parents could work out, like, how do we downgrade our cars, or what do we do to make up that $650? And I feel like a lot of parents now are going to figure out for just 5 years until the kids are in kindergarten how to have 1 parent work so they can save the money, raise their children, and then when they go to kindergarten, go get that job for $50,000, $60,000. Now all of a sudden they can start building wealth again. So I would break down your numbers and see if it's really worth it when it's all said and done, getting a second job, but also having to have daycare.
What if childcare costs are so expensive because there is a lack of grandparents' willingness to help watch the kids while the parents work?
Childcare costs are not high because grandparents aren't providing free childcare. It also won't go down if more grandparents start providing free childcare. Because here's the thing, childcare costs are high for a few different reasons. We have corporate greed. It's a privatized industry when it really shouldn't be. We live in a capitalistic society, but also it's a business with a lot of overhead and insurance and all of these things that add up. And unfortunately, the people who work in childcare centers or as nannies don't get paid what they deserve. It's definitely not a living wage. It's not expensive because grandparents have chosen not to provide free childcare for families. But here's the thing about grandparents as childcare. First and foremost, a lot of grandparents don't want to provide childcare. Definitely not on a full-time basis. Or if they do want to, they can't because they're working, because they're retiring later, or because physically they're not able to. Maybe they've passed away or they don't live nearby. And so the solution that grandparents should step in just isn't rooted in the reality of most families. But also, there's this assumption, and it was stated in the video, that having grandparents watch children is inherently better than childcare, than a nanny or a daycare. But this also isn't rooted in reality because grandparents, sure, they're family, but that doesn't make them inherently better caregivers, right? You could be a grandparent and be bad at being with toddlers, right? But childcare workers typically have gone to school for early childhood education. They do continuing ed, they do professional development. They are equipped to help your child meet developmental and educational milestones. And grandparents often are not doing that work. Actually, it's probably been 30, 40 years since they've interacted with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. So here's the thing. We should not be looking to grandparents to solve the childcare crisis. And when we say grandparents, I think we should be more clear that we're really talking about grandmas because grandmothers are the ones providing the unpaid free childcare for people. And for centuries, we have relied on the unpaid labor of women to care for children. And we still expect women to do that. We expect them to work their entire lives unpaid for the benefit of our country, of men, of capitalism. And here's the thing. The solution to the childcare crisis lies in our government, in funding, in subsidies, in infrastructure. Look at our peer nations. They have figured this out. Our country has chosen not to. And the solution that they have presented again and again and again is that women should continue to do unpaid labor. Why solve a problem when we can make women do it for free?
I charge $1,000 a week per daycare kid, and here's what I'm making my daycare kids for lunch. Doing the math, 3,000 times 4 weeks means I make $9,000 every month. Not sure where you're from, but $9,000 a month is on the low end for where I live. Instead of investing that money back in my daycare, I like to put it in my bank account, so it's just for me. Anyways, for daycare lunch, I'm making the kids some chicken fries. They're veggie, they're having some french fries. The chicken does not count as a protein, so I have to offer an extra protein, so I'm giving them some cheese sticks, but I'm going to make sure I break them up so they're not coin-shaped anymore. Chicken nuggets also don't count as a grain, so they're snacking on some rolls right behind me. This season, you are hearing correctly, I am unfortunately sick. The family that got me sick, I decided to term them because how dare they bring a kid with a snotty nose to my house. Kids also have not met their sugar intake for today, so I'm going to give them some ketchup. And just in case, I really want to make sure they hit their sugar goal, so I'm going to give them some canned pears. You guys said I should stop using knives, so I did in fact cut these pears up with my teeth. Anyway, here's what $1,000 at an in-home daycare gets you for a daycare lunch. Have a good day!
The cost of childcare is crazy and unsustainable. I understand why nannies are paid what they are, and while I understand daycare, I want my kids to be in the safest environment possible. I'm just saying, honestly, it's crazy. And I mean that from a ratio of income to childcare. I just got an email that my 4-year-old was accepted to a daycare that we applied in 2024. I don't mean 2024. We applied in 2020 for the daycare. So 4 years later, they finally have a spot because Charlotte, North Carolina is insane for daycares right now. They said, no problem. We just need a down payment and we need a month of the daycare, $2,400. I have 3 kids under 4. $2,400, and then they'd give a discount to my second for $2,200. If you add in my third, it's going to come to about $6,800 a month for daycare that's only from 9 to 2 a day. I'd have to be providing my own snacks and everything for the babies. $81,600. At that point, it's better for me not to work. What? I feel so defeated in this economy. $82,000. If I were to make a salary and then get the taxes, insurance, and everything off of it, it would be equivalent to about a $130,000 job. What are people doing? How are they surviving? I'm about ready to sell my feet pictures. Let me know.
Have you seen the daycare costs these days? $2,200 a month for one child. I was talking to this mom at a birthday party this weekend, and she was telling me that she went and got a job for $65,000. And I was like, oh, that's really awesome because her husband makes great money, but they wanted extra money. She said the only downside is that I need to have a nanny come Monday through Friday, and it costs me $2,200 a month. And I don't have kids, so I never even thought of that before. And you know me with my numbers, started having a conversation with her. I said, well, what's your take-home pay, if you don't mind me asking? And she said about $4,000. She goes, so that's the tough part here is that after the daycare cost, I'm only really pocketing $1,800 a month, and then it's $300 in gas because the commute's very far. So I'm really going to work for 40 hours a week and only pocketing $1,500. So I'm wondering if I even made a mistake here and they're trying to figure this all out. And we look at people who have a job at $65,000 or $80,000 or a couple who's making $120,000, and you're like, how can you not afford this? Like, this doesn't make sense. But when you really break it down, her take home of that $65K is only $18,000 a year. So some people, that $1,500 a month is make or break. But I'm curious if she's going to end up moving forward with that job, because once they saw the numbers, but I was blown away because I've never looked into daycare costs before. Are you all finding that daycare per child is what, $1,000, $2,000 a month? What's your experience with that?
$2,200 for daycare? Hell no, we got 2 kids.
That's what it is, Francisco. That's how much it costs.
Sakina, that's a mortgage. That's a car note. How the hell do people afford it? No wonder no one wants to go to work. It's cheaper to stay home than to send the kids to daycare. That's like sending them to college. And we gotta send them with food.
What do you want me to do? I called 3 different places. That's just what it is.
Let me talk to my mom.
For what?
She could talk to the neighbor. She used to take care of me for $125 a week. Inflation, maybe $200.
Hell no. The one that watches 15 kids and all she does is let them watch TV all day? No, it ain't happening.
So what, man? Look at me. I turned out perfectly fine. She took care of me.
You turned out fine? No.
I got a better idea. How about I stay home, you go to work, I watch the kids? It makes more sense. It'll be cheaper to
Makes more sense? No, that's even worse than freaking the lady taking care of him. You go to work. Take your ass to work. I'll stay home with the kids. Simple as that. That's it. Stay at home mom.